Well, welcome. I want to thank everyone for joining this evening. And just to give you a little background in terms of format, welcome from Campbell Hall, even though I'm actually in Pavilion 6, but I thought I'd give you, for those of you who haven't been here in a while, a little bit of a shot of what Campbell Hall looks like, at least at night. I'm going to speak for probably 15 to 20 minutes and then open it up for questions, which you can write now or anytime during the talk by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and by writing any questions into that. First, of course, and foremost, I hope that all of you are safe and well. We miss you. I miss all of you. I know that these last few weeks have really been truly unimaginable for all of us. And as I noted in my communications to all of you, we've all had to very quickly adapt to a changed world and to new ways of living and working to try to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And as we're all aware, these changes in our operations are in order to protect ourselves, our families, and of course, our larger communities. We're also, I think, deeply aware that the impacts of COVID-19 are very uneven, affecting all of us in different ways. And we're therefore most concerned about those who are the most vulnerable among our populations, including those who are truly on the front lines of this global pandemic. And this, of course, includes our healthcare workers, those who are in essential service industries who are still putting themselves at risk daily, those who have lost their jobs and only sources of income, those who are caring for our children, and those who are most at risk because of age, health, lack of income, and other vulnerabilities. We all have friends, family, and loved ones who have been impacted in one way or another. And some of us have also lost family members, colleagues, and friends that are dear to us. I do believe that we need to be incredibly compassionate and understanding as much as possible during this time, while also being creative and optimistic. We will get through this and hopefully become better people because of it. It will also hopefully teach us things, make us a bit wiser, and enable us not just to be reactive, but also to reflect on our values and larger aspirations moving forward. As I had written in my letter to you, although this is certainly not what we imagined the second half or the end of our centennial year or the beginning of our next 100 years to look like, I am truly heartened by the way in which the ACE School community came together to meet this challenge, being remarkably resilient, incredibly empathetic, and very strongly collaborative. We started our university leadership meetings in early March in response to this pandemic. And early in the second week of March, the School of Architecture moved forward to transform our entire curriculum and all of our classes into an online teaching and learning model, drawing upon the tremendous ingenuity of our school leadership and our faculty and staff. We put together a number of documents for faculty, staff, and students. These are guides to online teaching and learning, which all of you can access on our website. Our communications team, led by Sneha Patel, started a COVID-19 resource section for our entire community with ongoing updates on health, academic, and other issues that's linked to the university's COVID-19 website. Our IT group, led by Eric Field, moved us very quickly into position to make this transition online. Our Director of Student Advising, Tashana Starks, with our Associate Dean for Academics, Anselmo Canfora, led the effort to support our students' daily needs. And our Academic Leadership Group, which I lead, which includes all of our Associate Deans, department chairs, and program directors, and we meet these days multiple times a week, looked at ways that we could creatively transform what we do while ensuring that first and foremost, we continue to support our educational mission, our academic excellence through teaching and research, while also advancing knowledge and supporting the common good. To draw upon President Ryan's words, if there was ever a time to be great and good, I think this is truly it. As I'm sure that you all know, as I also noted in the letter to everyone, for a school that's really highly invested in experiential learning, project-based learning, and material making, I refer to Design Studio as a high contact sport. Making this transition to online was not an easy endeavor. It required a tremendous amount of imagination, but this is of course something that we are particularly good at. The results have really been fantastic, and I'm in awe of what we've managed to achieve, especially given that we had had many discussions about online learning before that hadn't gotten as much traction, and we managed to transform our entire curriculum in less than a week, in pretty much 3 to 4 days. Our lectures and seminars are all happening through Zoom, and our students and faculty are connected in real time across the globe. We use both synchronous and asynchronous methods in this, even though all of our classes are still happening at the same times that they are normally happening. Design studios, as I noted, use multiple forms of interactive media. We basically created a new model for this so that students and faculty can virtually share drawings, models, renderings, and videos through Zoom, while also using shared digital whiteboards for real-time interactive drawing. We use Colab, which is short for Collaboratory, which is an online classroom site that was invented and developed at UVA for all of the shared materials for each class. And then students are asked to submit their materials in advance of each class so that in a studio, for example, faculty can sketch on top of them and then share them with students live during online discussions and desk crits. We are still using all of the models that we traditionally use, such as desk crits, pinups, and reviews. And of course, now during reviews, we can also invite people from across the country and around the world to our interim reviews, which our faculty are doing. Since we also have visiting professors, such as our SURE professors this semester, which are Barclay and Cruz, Sandra Barclay and Jean-Pierre Cruz, who are located in Lima, Peru, we're able to engage them remotely with the same frequency as our regular faculty and bring in visiting experts into our classroom more effectively. And we're doing this in different ways. Our lecturers, for example, are actually coming in to our classes. So lectures that we had scheduled for the semester are literally linking up with studios and classes. Professional practice has brought in other instructors, technology, etc. And we're able to shrink the distance between Charlottesville and many cities around the globe, which has been helpful for us in different ways. We also have students plugging in remotely to our virtual desktop machines, and that's to use highly specialized software in advanced courses, such as our parametric structures class. I'm also really happy to report that our Fab Lab team, Melissa Goldman and Trevor Kemp, are very much on the front lines. They have been actively supporting UVA's medical center, as well as Martha Jefferson Hospital, through a university-wide effort to prototype, test, and make PPEs, personal protective equipment, such as face shields, that they're making at remarkable speed. They're able to cut out 360 masks every 15 minutes and are planning on basically making 7,000 a week. Over the last few years, we have made substantial investments in our equipment and technologies, which I'm very thankful for, since we found not only that our advanced technologies and online platforms are incredibly robust, but also that our faculty, students, and staff are really the creative problem solvers and thinkers that we always knew them to be. And of course, this has been put to test very much so in the last few weeks. Crises can, of course, be extremely difficult, yet they can also yield and showcase incredible creativity, inventiveness, and resourcefulness. This is a time where we need to not only maintain the excellence of our core mission and also support our most vulnerable, but I would say as a kind of third priority, to also be highly creative and innovative. This is happening in different ways, from expanding our best practices in the studio and classroom into an online format, to maximizing the potential of other virtual events that have enabled us to reach a wider group than those that could typically make it to Charlottesville. For our admission cycle, for example, we not only shifted to a virtual open house in literally 48 hours, where we engage more than twice as many students as usual, but we also opened up our classrooms to admitted students. We now run multiple sessions focused on faculty teaching and research through what we're calling virtual parlors, and are able to expand outreach, the outreach of some of our lectures, such as the upcoming Thomas Jefferson Medalist Talk, which I'm hoping that you'll all join. This will be happening 1 week today by Marion Weiss and Michael Manfredi to our entire community of students, faculty, alumni, parents, and friends of the school. I wanted to say a couple of things as well about the career market and some of the decisions we made around admissions. We're very cognizant of some of the challenges for our existing students, in particular for our students who will be graduating this spring, and for our continuing students who are wondering about what will be happening next fall. For the first group, many of whom might have secured jobs post-graduation that now may seem less secure, we have offered them the opportunity to continue on to graduate school, to advance their knowledge, hone their skills, and complete their professional degrees through our direct admission process, to expand their options following graduation with an extended deadline, April 24th, for these students. I should say the direct admit policy recognizes that we're familiar with the work of our own students and graduates, and we therefore give them the opportunity to bypass the primary typical admissions process if they meet our minimum GPA requirements and our minimum GPA for studio requirements. We also offered this opportunity to our recent graduates of the last 5 years, since we know that economic downturns are sometimes the best times to go back to school. For our graduating students, we're also in the process of planning for graduation with the university. And although dates haven't been finalized, we are planning to hold an on-grounds graduation ceremony for this year's graduates next year, meaning it will be postponed. We don't know when yet. Right now, the university is looking at dates. And we will also be marking the occasion virtually at the end of this semester during the normal final exercises graduation weekend. These plans are in process now. We will be updating everybody as soon as they are finalized. In relation to our summer and next fall, although our summer classes will remain online, so we have canceled summer travel programs, our remaining summer classes are all continuing, but online. And unless otherwise mandated, we are planning on fully resuming our normal on-grounds instruction in the fall 2020 semester. But we're also prepared and committed to provide an exceptionally robust online curriculum for any students who may be outside of the US right now and unable to join us in person at the start of the semester. So we are planning a two-pronged approach. And although we're planning for every contingency now, it's likely that plans for the fall will not be finalized until the end of May, given that while we want to be making these decisions earlier in order to plan, we're also aware that we'll have more information as time progresses in order for the university to make an informed decision. We are operating, I should note that beyond the leadership meetings that I'm having within the School of Architecture multiple times a week, I also meet with the other deans, the president, provost, COO, and others across the university also multiple times a week. So I'm giving you the most updated information as of my meeting with our president, provost, and deans this morning. Right now, we are planning, as I said, a two-pronged approach, knowing that there will likely be one of three scenarios in place. The first, which is our ideal scenario, which is opening on time with social distancing requirements as necessary and providing online instruction for students who are unable to get to UVA because of visa issues or because of health-related issues, etc. The second is a later in-person start date that might slightly shift our next academic year calendar. And that might mean starting later instead of the end of August, starting in September or October, and looking at an entirely slightly shifted calendar. And the third is an online start at the beginning of the semester with a far more robust experience planned for this to transition at some point during the semester. And those are the three most likely scenarios. And as I said, we're doing contingency planning. So we're basically planning for all of the above. As I'm sure that all of you are aware, the pandemic has also created many challenges, including serious financial consequences for many, including the university and the School of Architecture. Despite revenue shortfalls across all categories of funding, and this includes current and future tuition, state funding, research grants, endowment returns, and philanthropy, as well as losses in the critical care in the health system. This semester, we have fulfilled 100% of our financial commitments to students, staff, and faculty, and this includes honoring all of our student teaching and research assistantships, administrative and work study positions, as well as our scholarships and fellowships, whether a student was able to fulfill their duties under the current online model or not. For the most part, we retooled student job descriptions so that they could happen in an online format. And in addition, the university set up a number of funds, which included emergency travel support for students, emergency technology support for online learning, and emergency funding for food, medication, and supplies for students, as well as a $2 million emergency fund for university contract workers. We will, however, be needing to carefully and very strategically tighten our belts moving forward, as all organizations are needing to do, and be looking at both inefficiencies and opportunities in our operations and strategic shifts that might need to occur in relation to our priorities as we think in relation to both short and long-term goals moving forward. There is, of course, a lot that we currently do not know, but we're certainly always trying to be nimble, strategic, and think ahead of the curve. I'm incredibly impressed. Things that have taken years to accomplish in the past, those decisions have happened in days, sometimes in hours, which is incredibly impressive. And I had written just to close that at the end of my letter that I do believe that this event will make us stop and think about many of our everyday practices and values in new ways, and will offer our community new opportunities for leadership, wisdom, and creativity, things that we will all very much need in the years to come. I do very much believe this, especially when we look at some of the unintended consequences of this crisis, from potentially meeting our reduced admissions goals this year to seeing the air clear and the animals and birds return in many cities around the world. And many people are, I would say, for the first time, spending a lot more time with their children, which is probably a good thing. I think that we should stop and celebrate the short-term gains, even within the context of our current crisis, but more than anything, think about the ways in which these might challenge us to rethink our future. Thank you all. I'm going to stop there and open this up for questions and discussion. So we'll move to the Q&A. So the first question, and I will I'll read out the questions as they come in. One of the questions are the studies abroad programs like Barcelona for the next semester still on? Currently, they are, but of course this could change in the future, and we're in the process of planning for this now. As I said, you know, everything that we're doing is in real time. So until, you know, a mandate is made in relation to travel or in relation to our instruction in person, we will continue to plan. At the same time, we're discussing other opportunities for this. We recognize that for our students who would be planning to go to Barcelona, for example, it's not that they can simply postpone it and be able to go in a following year. So we're looking at different possibilities. One possibility is looking at the spring semester instead of the fall. Another is to retain the curriculum, but potentially shorten it, meaning that they don't go for an entire semester, but might go for the end of the fall semester, but still have an entire curriculum that's focused on Barcelona. Sue asked, will students be able to know their grade in progress before deciding whether they want to go pass-fail? The answer is potentially yes. I have asked all, and for those of you that don't know, we switched to a voluntary pass-fail for students this semester, or credit, no credit, which is essentially the same as pass-fail. We asked, our faculty are still grading as normal, and any student, this is the student's decision, not the faculty, so any student can elect to go pass-fail up until the last day of the semester. We ask faculty to let the students know, to give them feedback, to let them know where they are during the semester before they make that decision. So they should be getting that feedback from faculty. Someone asked, how is the university planning for protecting faculty who may be older or have health issues and need to shelter in place, even if students are allowed back? We have had some discussions about that at the university level. I think we're trying to protect faculty as much as possible, or I should say every member of our community. So if there is a situation with a faculty member who is unable to teach in person, we would likely enable them to do something online and work out some scenario for that. Gwyn asked, how would taking a credit, no credit option in a studio course affect a student for grad school? It wouldn't affect them at all, in the sense that taking a pass-fail gives them the credits, but it does not affect their GPA. So the reason that we offered the option for students to be able to take a grade if they wanted to was essentially for a student who might have been doing exceptionally well during the first part of the semester and wanted to be able to, and planned on continuing that because essentially students had completed 7 weeks of the semester before this happened, in normal in-person classes. And many students might not want to forfeit, the grades if that grade might have been higher than their previous grades. So that's why we're giving students that option.
Hi, Liv, if I may add a detail. Hello, everyone. Great to see you all here online. This is Anselmo Canfora, the Associate Dean of Academics. I wanted to add that all official transcripts by the university will have a note as to the reason for the credit, no credit. Now, most will understand this as this is a nationwide and international pandemic. So, but nonetheless, the university is going to clarify why someone might see a credit on the transcript rather than a grade.
Susan asked, said visitors to the meeting seem to be muted by the host already. That is true. It's the format of this particular meeting, and it's only it's to make it more secure and more manageable, even though our panelists can allow anybody to talk if they really want to talk, to speak rather than typing in. So you can
just jump in real quick?
Yeah.
There is another question that came in through the chat, which is a clarification on what the no credit option is. You just discussed that, but maybe just repeating what that is, since it's probably pretty new to most people.
Sure. So this semester we had decided that because given all of the circumstances, and they were very different for very different students, we didn't want the conditions of this semester to affect them in any way, and to give them as much flexibility as possible. So we went to a system which basically was that faculty are still grading students up until the end of the semester. And then at the very end of the semester, the default is to translate that grade into a credit, no credit, or pass fail, meaning credit is equal to pass and no credit equal to fail. For our undergraduates, a pass is a C or above, and for our graduates, it's a B- or above. And the faculty will let the students know how they're doing throughout the semester. And it's up to the student. So the default, as I said, is basically the pass fail, but any student up until the last day of classes can elect to take a grade should they want to. And they might choose to do this, for example, if they think, and they can do this in any class. So it's in a class by class basis.
And then Sue had a follow-up question that I think is good for us to just address right now, which is that a lot of students are having difficulty on deciding whether they should go pass or fail. And are there any guidelines that we could recommend for the students?
This is one where I think that, I don't want to put it simply in academic terms, that if a student is doing really well, they should take the grade. And if they feel that, they have had more difficulty, it could have been because of the online transition. It could be because of their situation, their home situation, etc. But I think I had encouraged, when I wrote a letter out to the students, I encouraged them all to consider taking a grade if they feel that, if they feel that they are doing well in the semester and they're fulfilling their academic requirements in a way that satisfies them. I think most of our students are doing exceptionally well. I'm very impressed by that. In the end, it's really up to the student, and it's really about how much they want the grades from this semester to count. It might be towards graduate school if they are undergraduates, or it's basically going to mark on, be something on their transcript. I think that because there will be other information that basically will say on their transcript what this is in relation to, I don't think it will adversely affect any student one way or the other. And I should also maybe note that this is a standard being used by many institutions across the country. We are not operating in isolation. Our president is speaking to other presidents of the university, provost to other provosts, and I'm speaking to other deans, and we are operating together as a collective.
I would say that for me, the essential guideline is to be in direct communication with your professor and to talk with them about your progress in the class, to be persistent, maintain your best efforts towards the course. And we push the deadline, the date for that decision until the last day of classes for that very reason, so that you could continue to work with your professor to determine the best option for you.
Somebody asked, when will students get approved to clean out their studio areas? That I don't know. This is going to be something that will very much be determined by the university as a whole, that has to do with students coming on grounds. Right now, our building is still operating. It is closed. It is basically empty outside of our head of facilities and our Melissa and Trevor in our Fab Lab. Some faculty are periodically using the facilities in the school when they are teaching their classes, and it is being cleaned regularly, and it is card accessible by faculty, staff, etc. We will let you know as soon as we know. And again, it's very much dependent on what's happening both at the university level and at the state and national level. Somebody also asked, have you experienced any challenges the students are having in the only environment where parents might be able to help? I'm going to say a couple things and maybe pass it over to you, Anselmo. I think that one thing that's interesting is Tishana Starks and Anselmo, of course, are meeting with our students every day. Tashana's whole day is filled with online individual meetings with students and often with their parents as well. And I think in these meetings where she's advising students, having parents sometimes involved in that is helpful if they are things that parents can help with. And sometimes that's in terms of giving them the support or space that they need in order to work, things that might support them in relation to technology, et cetera. I think those are some of the challenges that students have, is working in an environment that is very different than, having a set of peers around who are all working on a project with them. And now the motivation has to come more from them. And I think that's sometimes a little more difficult when they're more isolated. So ensuring that they have the space to develop that and encouragement to support them, I think, is great. And Samuel, do you want to say anything about that?
Oh, just a small detail. You covered it very well. A small detail. Tashana, yes, is meeting with all of our students, 615 plus, some of whom she's met with multiple times already. So constant contact, and I'm involved in some of those meetings as well. As Isla covered, I think one of the really important points is to continue to be as supportive as you all have been as parents. And one of the issues that has come up in my discussions with students is the extent to which they can actually concentrate on their coursework given new distractions that now they have, having returned home. In some cases, parents expecting them to work part-time or full-time. And so because of financial issues, and so this is putting a significant stress on our students because they're still attending and managing 15, 16, 17 credits worth of coursework, and now are being asked to attend to a number of other, let's say, chores, of course, and work. So please continue to be as supportive as you all have been, and as Isla said, to create that space where our students can continue to focus and excel.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest challenges for our students right now. I mean, obviously it varies from household to household, but for students that are now expected to take care of their little brothers and sisters, for example, or where the demands are greater for them. And in part, this is also because parents are not usually with students when they are working in the school all the time. And some parents might not be used to the intensity with which, the students actually commit to their coursework. And I think that's a kind of challenge because the expectations might be different. But at the same time, you're also there to help support them in other ways, feeding them, for example, in ways that we might not be able to do and they might not be doing as well for themselves sometimes. So I think, the kind of love and support the parents are giving the students is really incredibly helpful. Does anybody else have any questions? You can write it in the chat or in the Q&A.
So we have one question that was sort of lost at the very beginning, the first question that came in, which you touched on, but it's how will summer studio courses be handled for incoming transfers?
So in the same way, we have both for our undergraduate transfers and for our graduate students who normally start in the summer. So these are students who did not start in their first year at UVA in the architecture school, but at UVA, for example, or who might be transferring into their second year, and normally they fulfill some of the core coursework in the summer. Those courses will all be happening this summer. They will all be online, and we are right now going through the process of transitioning those courses to ensure that they're in the best kind of possible format possible for those students. And we will be developing those. They will be operating in the same schedule that they normally operate in the same way that we have been running them this semester. We wanted, obviously, as little disruption as possible for our students when we move to the online format, which is why our scheduling, literally our scheduling, calendar, time, etc., is the same. The only difference might be in some of those courses, like our Summer Design Institute, which is the equivalent to the graduate level of what our undergraduate students do when they take basically the first year studio courses in the summer. Those courses sometimes go longer, and we might be looking at some of the scheduling on that as we transition to an online format. And Samuel, did you want to add anything regarding the summer courses?
So the summer courses are organized across 3 sessions. Right now, the first and second session, ending in late June, are going online, and I'm working with all the professors that are teaching those courses, and Eric Field, who is helping tremendously with taking all of our courses online and doing even more for the summer, since we now have a little bit more time to plan ahead and to set those courses up online. The third session that starts the first week in July is how we haven't made a call on that yet. So we're waiting on that to decide whether we'll have that in person or online. And again, as I said, we will be covering all of those online or in person, and synchronously or asynchronously, to make up for the fact that some of our students, of course, are not in the same time zone we're in, and so we're planning for that as well.
Beth had made a note that I'll share as well, and this was in relation to asking about how parents can help support the students. She said the statistics posted in the A School, the national surveys show that architecture school students and chemistry majors spend more time on homework outside of the classroom than any other major. Their school work is a 40+ hour commitment. In other words, being a student is a full-time job. And just to give you a little more information on that front, for example, a student that has a 3-hour class, during the week, it's expected that they will be doing double that amount of time outside that class if it's a lecture or a seminar. And for a studio, it's usually 1-to-1, meaning if they're spending 9 hours or 12 hours in, it's expected that they're also spending another 12 hours outside class time on the work that they're preparing for their next class. So that's a kind of rule of thumb to give you an idea based on the number of classes or hours that they might have. John asked, sorry if you've already covered this because he joined late, what is the current thinking on the fall semester at the university and probability that courses may be online? And what impact are you anticipating on acceptances should that be the case? I did cover it, but I'm happy to go through it again. We are, on the one hand, we are saying to students, unless otherwise mandated, we're planning on fully resuming our normal on-grounds instruction in the fall 2020 semester, but we're prepared to provide a robust online curriculum for any students who may be outside of the US right now and unable to join us in person. This is all of our international students who may have visa issues, or where there may be borders still closed, etc., or for a student who might be coming from a hotspot or needs to be quarantined, etc. So we are planning this two-pronged approach. That said, right now there are 3 scenarios in place. So even though we are planning on resuming normal on-grounds instruction, we're planning for a full online curriculum should we need to. The first scenario is opening on time, except with some social distancing requirements as necessary. And as I said, the two-pronged approach of providing online instruction for any student unable to get to UVA, and how we are managing that is what we are working on right now. The second scenario is a slightly later in-person start date, and how that might shift our next year's academic calendar, meaning starting mid-September, October, etc. Maybe compressing what would normally be our winter break and J term and extending later into the spring. And the third is an online start at the beginning of the semester with a more robust experience plan for this, because we now have far more lead time to transition. And so we're looking now at best practices and how we get to the next level should we need to. In terms of how it's affecting our admissions, on the one hand, one of the good things I'll say is that we have been doing so much on the virtual front. Many of the things that we've been doing for our admitted students, many of them we will continue next year, even when we are in person, as we found there have been a lot of opportunities that have come out of this that we hadn't done previously, that have enabled students to get a better understanding of what faculty and students are doing in the classroom, et cetera. One of the big challenges for us right now, or one of the biggest questions, is around our international students and how they're being affected. And that's the largest group that will likely shift in relation to our admissions. So my expectation is that we will likely have a larger percentage of domestic students versus international students, just in terms of the makeup. Right now, we're seeing differences also across disciplines and between undergraduate and graduate. Our undergraduate admissions are farther ahead than they were last year at this time. Some of our graduate admissions are on track with where they were, and some are behind. We'll know a lot in the next couple days, but we're managing that kind of day to day. Someone asked, have you experienced yet the fruits of your new teaching efforts in notable ways? Any aha moments yet? Yes, I would say so. At the our last virtual faculty member meeting, which we had probably the best attendance ever, because we had faculty in Peru, in New York, and in Chicago all joining all of the faculty. One of the things that we talked a little bit about was shared best practices, what some of the faculty were discovering. And some of the faculty said, for example, that they've never seen students so prepared coming to studio as they have in our new online format. And that's in part because we planned a slightly shifted model, asking students to submit their work in advance so that the desk crits and things like that could be far more productive, and that would give faculty a chance to respond in advance. And I think it has also, this informs us not just for online teaching and learning, but also has informed us in relation to our own practices. And we're also hoping that new models will come out of this. We now have an ad hoc working group that's specifically on taking our best practices from this semester and pushing that to the next level so we can move to an online 2.0 should we need to, but also potentially for future programs, etc. Marcia asked, could you possibly consider crediting me for my work experience if I apply for the graduate program? I graduated in 1995 from the UVA School of Architecture and worked with architecture firms as well as independent projects for over 15 years. The online courses would also interest me as I live abroad. So the latter part of your comment, Marcia, one of the reasons that in this ad hoc working group, we're looking at best practices in relation to our online curriculum now, but we're also looking at future online programs in relation to non-traditional students. And one of those groups is mid-career professionals. And this is in relation to potential post-professional programs for exactly that reason. One, to be able to reach out to students who are working, who are not able to come to Charlottesville, et cetera, and what that might look like. We're looking at that in relation, for example, to our post-professional programs in architecture and landscape architecture, which are one-year specializations. we're looking at that in relation to urban planning and our real estate certificate program. In relation to the work experience, this is something that you should go through the normal admissions process, and it would be considered within that in relation to your portfolio work, et cetera. Anselmo, did you want to add anything at all in relation to that?
No, I think if you're looking at the post-professional, what we refer to as the Path 1 track, I think that is an excellent opportunity to, one, continue to work professionally, but at the same time to add a specialization and expand or deepen your specialization through that graduate program.
Yeah. Steve asked, I've never been more, or said, this is a comment which I'll share, I've never been more proud of UVA and especially the School of Architecture. I'm very proud of the school too. I think we've done an amazing job, quite honestly, and it's been a lot of work, but it's really been transformative. Are there concerns about using Zoom in light of the news coverage around security, privacy deficiencies? The reason all of you are in the format where you can't do anything is exactly for that reason. We shifted immediately upon getting the news. Our head of IT sent out something to all of our faculty. We developed new protocols around Zoom so that we would know all of the registrants, all of our attendees in all of our classes, and there are ways to ensure that security, and some of them are simple, which meaning that, for example, that every Zoom session is automatically set up so that an attendee cannot randomly share their screen, for example, and jump in and disrupt a session. So these things are more controlled by the faculty member, et cetera. Using the webinar format for Zoom is one of the ways that actually enables those conditions. So there are protocols in place for this. Scott asked, how can the A-School Alumni Network provide local support to now online students and or their parents where all are now in the same region? I think that's a great question. We are now, in our first couple of weeks, we were very much focused on what we call mission essential functions, or our academic mission. We're now looking at ways that we can branch out to our alumni community, bring in expertise, have firms and our alums speaking to our students, et cetera. And I think it is interesting now that in the same way that we used to always link up based on geographical region, we're now all in the same region. Kim, I don't know if you wanted to jump in or say anything here as well, but please feel free to do so.
Hi everyone. We have a lot of great programs and ways that alums can join. First off, we are trying to mentor all of our graduating students, the class of 2020. So I sent out an email, I think on Friday. And so you guys should have all gotten them. If you didn't, then shoot us a note. And it had links to, and I can also put it out on this chat, links to sign up to be a mentor, which will just be simple contact, talking to our students, giving them some just support, someone to talk to out in the professional world. We're also asking for words of encouragement, so people can send us things that you have gone through, lessons you have learned on your detours and paths, and we will also share that. There'll be lots of ways in which, so Scott, we will definitely be in touch and look for your emails because we want to bring the community all together.
I'm going to add one more item, which is our Design Intelligence Survey will be going out shortly. And of course, everybody is focused on different things this year, but getting the responses and all of our alumni to be doing the survey, especially in relation to the professional group. The survey goes out to academics to administrators in the academic world, meaning chairs, deans, etc. It goes out to our students, and it goes out to hiring professionals. The hiring professionals have a huge impact on our survey. And last year in architecture, we were number 11. And in the nation, and in landscape architecture, 5th. We, of course, want to move into the top 10 this year. And because everybody is very distracted by what's happening with COVID-19, I hope that all of our alumni and any outreach that you can do as well on that front will certainly help us. I should also say that last year in the Design Intelligence rankings, or the 2020 rankings, we were number 2 for most hired graduates, which I think is a fantastic testament both to our graduating students and the school, and to our alumni community. So that's something that you can always continue to help us on. And especially any of you who have potential positions for students, especially our graduating students, to help reach out to them, that would be great. And Kim will certainly coordinate all of that with Betsy.
So I'm going to jump back into the chat just to collect a couple of these questions that came in. Raquel Hecker just had a comment. Thank you for doing this. And then she also asked, will you host another one of these again? And is it possible to view this later? Was it recorded? So I'll address the second part of this. We are now recording everything that we're doing at all times. And as long as it's some type of session where everyone who's participating, especially the hosts or the panelists, are okay with us sharing it, we will send it out or publicly post it. So for this session, we'll be able to share a link to our alumni and parents and board members.
Yes, and I'm happy to do these as often as people are interested in having them. I mean, as I've said, you know, because the situation is changing daily, meetings that normally happen, you know, used to happen once monthly, are now happening multiple times a week. I'm happy to do a kind of ongoing update, but I think what we'll do is figure out what might make sense. But it's really up to all of you, meaning that if board members or alumni or parents are interested in doing them, I'll certainly continue them. And of course, these can also be smaller groups and sessions as well. We've obviously been doing them with our admitted students. We've been doing them with our existing students in kind of virtual town halls. And I think it's a great idea to keep everybody informed.
We also have another question from Sue. The first year students are missing out on a lot of hands-on studio activity, including woodworking, laser cutting, model building. Could that be that couldn't be accomplished online? How would the future curriculum make up for it?
Yeah. So I should say that we are still encouraging all of our students to be building things, making models, etc., even though some things have turned more virtual if they were very equipment based. But we did ask all of our faculty to look at their syllabi, look at the assignments, and see what needed to be adjusted and what could students do on their own. So students are still building models. They're just showing them live within a virtual session with a faculty member, taking photographs of them, sharing them that way. So they're still working in that way. But we will be looking at the impacts, for example, that these last few weeks have had, and try to build that into to the future curriculum, because we know what students have or have not had as they move forward. I think the effects have been greatest on courses that were very much focused on making. A couple studios that were based on, for example, full scale prototyping. They did have, as I said, 7 full weeks of this from the beginning of the semester. And those faculty adjusted the curriculum to be able to adapt to that. At one point during the early part of this, when this was happening, we were talking about having some limited scale things happening within our Fab Lab, which we then had to stop. But we will ensure that anything that students might have lost, in these last 5 weeks, that they will get built into their future curriculum.
I can add, as the coordinator for Architecture 1030, the Foundation Studio One for first years. Fortunately, we were able to, over 2/3 of the semester, since we start the curriculum both on digitally and in an analog fashion, so students are drawing using hardline methods on a drafting board, as well as three-dimensionally, either in Rhino and or Illustrator. From the beginning of the semester, we integrate that as much as possible. I feel really good about the level of preparation they received up until spring break. And as Isla said, our students are being encouraged to continue to work using sketching, drawing, model making, as well as the kind of digital output that we're asking them to complete for the semester. I think it's been, the haha moment that we've had in 1030 is the extent to which this has really accelerated the students' sort of attention to being able to describe their ideas very effectively, verbally, through the written word, as well as graphically. So I'm very happy about that, which may have not has developed as quickly, I would say, with an in-person method, because they're being asked to kind of explain themselves through various modes of. And then I'll add one more point about the kind of security practices and protocols that we put in place that has to do with protection of privacy. And this is across the entire university, working directly with the provost's office to ensure that the students' privacy is also protected. So when we do record, as Sneha said, all of our courses, those can only be distributed within the course, the student enrollment cohort, and cannot be shared publicly. There's also a way to ensure that recordings cannot be downloaded and distributed. They can only be viewed in real time or as recorded files.
Any other comments, questions? Well, I want to thank everybody for joining. Please feel free to write any comments, just general comments in the Q&A or in the chat, things that you'd like to see, things that you'd like to hear from us. We're sending out lots of things and communicating more than I ever remember communicating in some ways, but we know that there are questions that you might have that we might not be addressing on a regular basis. So please be sure to let us know. And as I said, because these things are changing on a regular basis, and our situation is changing daily, we're trying to keep everybody updated in real time, meaning as soon as a decision is made, as soon as something happens, whether it's at the state level, university level, school level, we're trying to make sure that that gets out to all of our constituencies. So thank you all for your support. Being our larger community, we couldn't do what we're doing without you. And hopefully I will be seeing some of you again very, very soon. Good night, everybody.
Thank you all. Good night. Be well.